Spanish government has approved the creation of a minimum basic income. Now, according to The Hill, Deputy Prime Minister Pablo Iglesias said that 2.5 million people would be affected by the creation of this minimum income. Now, is it a true UBI, a universal basic income? Not necessarily. However, it is a monthly stipend for the poorest Spaniards. And so this would give every person who was under a certain amount of money 462 euros, or about $500 a month. And so under the decree approved at a cabinet meeting, the socialist-led government would pay a monthly stipend and top up existing revenue for people earning less so that they could get a minimum amount every month. Now, the minimum income would increase with the number of family members to a total of up to 1,000 euros a month. And so that's interesting. And that's a decent amount of money, but not a whole lot, really. It would help, though. And the new program aims to reach about 850,000 households, or 2.5 million people, and will cost the government about 3 billion euros a year. Now, this plan, of course, had come out before COVID-19. However, they were able to at least push it and get this done, thanks, I think, in part to the economic devastation of COVID-19. And so a lot of different places are looking at doing a universal basic income or some sort of stipend in order to help the economy get back on track because of COVID-19. Now, Spain has been hit pretty hard by this. They've had over 27,000 deaths and nearly 238,000 confirmed cases of the virus. It also has one of the highest unemployment rates on the European continent. In fact, they lost 1 million jobs in March alone when the lockdown began, and the Bank of Spain has forecast the economy will contract up to 12% this year. And so they actually do, they're in some serious trouble. And so they do need to do something. So now this brings me to what America's doing, right? The situation in the United States. We now have 40 million people that are unemployed in America, that have filed for unemployment. We may hit 20% unemployment. We might even be there already. According to polling from Data for Progress, a lot of people are in favor of doing something about that, which includes doing what Spain is doing, instituting a UBI. So now let me give you the polling on that, because it's important that we actually, since this is the economic shutdown is not the same as other shutdowns, right? Or our economic issues, not the same as everything else. We actually shut down the economy to save people's lives. So we need to, while we have this shutdown, be able to pay people, be able to give people money so that they can survive and continue to buy essentials and continue to pay bills, things like that. And so you have a lot of Americans that agree with giving people a UBI. In fact, according to polling from Data for Progress, 66% of the American public prefers receiving a recurring payment compared to a one-time payment, which we already have of $1,200, right? So a select group of Americans, because this was means tested old to hell, right? We had a select group of Americans that received $1,200, and that was it. $1,200. That's gone. That's been gone for a while. That's 1 month of rent. Now we've had since March, so several months. Now what are people doing? There's still people out there that cannot get unemployment benefits. The expanded ones, Republicans are already talking about taking it away. And so the American people, not in favor of that. They would rather have a recurring payment as opposed to a one-time payment, which we got in the United States. And in a lot of other countries, by the way, Canada has their own sort of program in which people are getting, money per month, $2,000 per month, right? Or near it. And so Now, let me give you some more details here. So, broken down by party, you had a majority of both Democrats and Republicans, to 77 to 52%, saying we would rather have a recurring payment per month. Now, the thing that they asked about, the program they asked about, would be a one-time payment of $2,000 and a recurring payment of $1,000 each month. Now, asked whether the people prefer a UBI, right, or a tax credit, right? Because this is one thing that the Democrats love to do, right? Democrats and Republicans, they love handing out tax credits, right? Tax credits, tax credits, tax credit for you, tax credit for you, tax credit for you, right? This is what we do. We're not going to give people a UBI. We're going to give people a tax credit. Remember, this was Pelosi's idea. She said, the leader of the House Democrats says, let's give people a refundable tax credit. You know what? People prefer a UBI over that tax credit. In fact, only 32% of Americans support a tax credit, 37% of independents, and 35% of Republicans. And so you have, of course, a majority saying that they would support a UBI as opposed to a tax credit. And so, look, let's see. Let me give you the numbers here. 2/3 of Americans say a UBI. Yes, please, let's get one of those, right? And we've had, certainly bipartisan legislation that has come out that way. You've had Bernie Sanders, of course, in the Senate, Ed Markey. And then you had, of course, Tim Ryan and Ro Khanna in the House saying we should get a $2,000 a month UBI. However, as I mentioned before, Nancy Pelosi, she wanted refundable tax credits. She ended up saying, okay, let's do another round of $1,200, and that's it. Now this is look, this is the thing, right? So she passed this legislation in the House, right? That was not going to get through the Senate. Mitch McConnell said, DOA, dead on arrival. And they still could only do a one-time $1,200 thing. And by the way, if you know it's not going to pass, if you know it's not going to get through the Senate, why not send a message to the American people? This is what we want to do for you. Pelosi has just signaled that she would do the bare minimum of what she could do. Bare minimum. Whereas, again, the majority of the American public says recurring monthly payments of at least $1,000. Now, as for funding this, right? So now they've got a couple of ideas, right? So now one is just increase the deficit, right? Republicans' heads explode whenever you say that. But only Republicans in office, really, as you're going to see from the poll here. Now, there's also minting new currency. For example, Rashida Tlaib says, mint the $2 trillion coin so that we can pay for the UBI, right? So that's something that she can do. And this is an idea that's out there. Another idea is wealth tax. So taxing the richest Americans on just their wealth. All right. So now, what did they say? Well, 42% of all Americans say, no, wealth tax. We'll take it from the rich. 24% say print more money, new currency, and 35% of Americans say, it's okay, let's just add it to the deficit. That's it. Now, the people that, of course, want to add it to the deficit more are ironically Republicans, right? Now, again, they're the ones that scream and cry about the deficit every time there's a Democrat in office, right? I mean, yeah, there's definitely a political motive on that. And so, Democrats gets in office, they scream and cry about the deficit. But when Republicans are in office, they don't care, generally, right? And so Republicans with 43% say add it to the deficit. 32% of Republicans say wealth tax, right? Among Democrats, 50% say wealth tax, and independents say 45%. And so, look, generally, overall, giving people $1,000 a month paid for by a wealth tax on the rich is the most popular position in America and during a pandemic. And we shouldn't be surprised that during a pandemic, during an emergency like we have, you have a larger majority of the American people becoming socialists. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.